The first time Karen waddled down the dock toward me, I thought she was coming to say hello. Her wide-brimmed hat bobbed with each step, her sandals slapped against the planks, and that permanent scowl of hers was already in full bloom. The lake was glassy that morning, the kind of peaceful you can feel in your bones, until her voice shattered it like a beer bottle on pavement. "You can't fish here," she barked before she even reached me, jabbing her manicured finger at the bass lure dangling from my line. I blinked at her, still half in the haze of dawn, and said, "Come again." She puffed out her chest like a bantam rooster and declared, "This dock, this Shorelinite's all HOA property, and fishing is prohibited without my authorization. As president of the HOA, I'm telling you to leave. Now." I might have laughed if it weren't for the smug little smile she tucked under her words, like she was sure she'd already won. Instead, I slowly reeled in, studying her. "Karen," I said, "this is my dock." That's when she tilted her head, eyes gleaming like she'd just cornered a wounded animal. "Not according to the covenants. I've got the bylaws right here." She whipped out a laminated packet from her beach tote like a magician revealing a rabbit, slapping it against her palm. I didn't look. I just kept coiling my line, not because I was backing down, but because something in me had already decided this was going to be fun. What she didn't know, and what I wasn't about to spill yet, was that the lake, the dock, and every square foot of shoreline for 200 yards belonged to me. Not me as in just my property lot, but me in the legal sense, by way of a deed that stretched back to my great-grandfather, predating the HOA by almost 60 years. My family had owned this water before the first cookie-cutter house in this neighborhood even broke ground. And the kicker? Thanks to a quirky clause in the original land transfer, the HOA itself was technically a leaseholder to me. I literally signed their annual renewal agreement. If anyone was trespassing here, it was her. Still, I let her stomp away after her little scene that morning, because patience isn't just a virtue, it's the seasoning that makes revenge taste like prime rib. Over the next week, she made it her personal mission to escalate. HOA letters started appearing in my mailbox fines for illegal shoreline activity, environmental disturbance, and, my personal favorite, angling without permit on private HOA waters. Each envelope came stamped with her signature in angry cursive, as if she were signing a declaration of war. I didn't reply. I just stacked them in a neat little pile on my kitchen counter. But Karen wasn't content with paper threats. She started showing up every time I cast a line, sometimes with her little folding lawn chair, just to sit there glaring at me like a gargoyle on a cathedral. One afternoon, she brought back up 2 other board members in matching polo shirts, both armed with clipboards. They hovered, scribbling notes like they were documenting some kind of crime scene. Kids stopped riding their bikes past my dock. Neighbors whispered. Karen's campaign was working her, so she thought. The turning point came when she cornered me at the local grocery store. I was standing in the fishing aisle, looking at new lures, when her voice came from behind me, dripping with condescension. "Buying more tools for your illegal hobby, I see." She actually leaned into my cart, scanning my items like she was inspecting contraband. I turned, slow and calm, and smiled. "Karen, I've been meaning to invite you to something special. There's going to be a meeting this Saturday right here at the lake. I'd love for you to be there. Bring your bylaws. Bring the whole board." Her suspicion flickered, but she couldn't resist the bait. Saturday came, and so did half the neighborhood. Word had gotten out, whether from me or from Karen's constant gossip. I'll never know, but folks were curious. Karen arrived in full regalia. Visor, sunglasses, floral dress, clutching her laminated bylaws like a preacher with a Bible. The other board members trailed behind her. I waited until the crowd had settled along the dock, the air buzzing with quiet anticipation. Then I stepped forward, holding a manila folder. "Karen," I said loudly enough for the group to hear, "you've accused me of fishing illegally on HOA property. You've fined me, harassed me, and threatened legal action. But there's one tiny problem." I opened the folder and pulled out a set of documents older than any of you's original deed papers, with embossed seals and ink signatures dated 1924. "This lake, this shoreline, and every dock including yours are mine. Legally. Permanently. The HOA doesn't own an inch of it. In fact, I flipped to the next page. Grinning, the HOA rents its access rights from me. Without my signature, this association wouldn't even exist. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face drained of color, then flushed beet red, her mouth opening and closing without sound. I kept going, explaining the land history, the lease clause, and how I'd been honoring that lease for years without issue until now. Then I produced my last piece of paper, a formal notice of non-renewal. Effective immediately, I said. The HOA no longer has rights to this lake or its shoreline, which means, Karen, you can't set foot on this dock without my permission. The crowd erupted, some in shock, others in cheers. Karen sputtered something about calling her lawyer, but the damage was done. I just cast my line into the water, the reel clicking softly, while she stood there frozen, gripping her useless bylaws like a lifeline. Karen's jaw worked like she was trying to chew her way out of a trap, but the crowd's murmurs were slicing her pride to ribbons. One man in the back, Mr. Clarkson, who'd been fined 3 separate times for leaving his kayak tied to his own dock, actually laughed out loud. A couple of teenagers who had been chased off by her security patrol were recording everything on their phones, barely holding in their grins. Her voice finally broke through the noise, high and brittle. This isn't over. You can't just dissolve an HOA without. I'm not dissolving anything, I interrupted, still calm. I'm just not renewing the lease. You can still run your association. You just can't pretend to control property you don't own. And you certainly can't fine people for fishing on my lake. Then I delivered the twist she never saw coming. Oh, and one more thing. See this? I held up a second document, an executed purchase agreement. As of last month, I bought out the developer's stake in the HOA itself, which means, Karen, you now answer to me, in every official capacity. The silence that followed was the kind you could bottle. You could see the exact moment her brain tried to process it, blinking, the twitch in her jaw, the tightening of her grip on those bylaws. Someone in the crowd whispered, "No way," and another neighbor muttered, "This is going to be good." I'm replacing the board, I continued. Effective immediately. All current members are relieved of their duties. Elections will be held next month for anyone who wants to serve. In the meantime, all fines issued in the last year are void, and all pending harassment complaints will be reviewed. Karen's knees buckled slightly. Her 2 loyal board members exchanged a look, realizing their cushy little reign was over. It wasn't just about the lake anymore. Her entire empire was crumbling in real time. And that's when the unexpected guest stepped forward. From the back of the crowd, a tall man in a pressed shirt and aviator sunglasses walked up. "Afternoon, folks," he said, flashing a badge that caught the sunlight. "County Assessor's Office. We've had multiple reports of unauthorized HOA fees and misappropriation of funds. Ms. Karen, I'm here to inform you that you are now the subject of a formal investigation." The gasp from the crowd was almost theatrical. Karen's hands trembled. "This is harassment," she shrieked. "No, ma'am," the officer replied, his voice cool as stone. "This is accountability, and given what I've just witnessed, we'll be expanding the scope of our inquiry." He glanced at me and gave a small nod. "Thank you for your cooperation, sir." From there, it all unraveled for her faster than a snagged fishing line. The phones filming her meltdown would hit local social media within hours. Then the community news, then the city's evening broadcast. By Monday morning, her face was on the front page under the headline, "HOA President Under Investigation." The county seized her HOA records. Her emails leaked dozens of petty vendettas, racially tinged rants, and instructions to make life miserable for certain neighbors. Neighbors who had once stayed silent started coming forward with their own stories: fines for flowers the wrong color, threats over political yard signs, even surveillance photos she'd taken of people's kids playing on the lakefront. By the end of the month, Karen was removed from the HOA entirely and banned from holding any leadership position in a community organization. The investigation found that she had funneled HOA funds into her personal account for years, and she ended up facing criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement. The day they towed her pontoon boat off the dock she no longer had rights to, I was out fishing in the same spot she tried to chase me from. A group of neighbors gathered nearby, laughing, swapping stories, casting their own lines. The lake was ours again, not because I owned it on paper, but because the people who lived around it finally saw through the fear she'd used to control them. Karen moved out a few weeks later. No farewell, no apology, just a U-Haul pulling away before sunrise. Her old house sits empty now, the for sale sign leaning crooked in the yard. Every time I pass it on my way to the lake, I can't help but smile. And on Saturday mornings, when the water is still and the air smells like pine, I sometimes see kids fishing from the dock, their laughter carrying across the water. Nobody tells them to leave. Nobody finds their parents. And every once in a while, someone new will ask me about the story the day Karen tried to ban me from my own lake. I tell it with a smile, not because I'm proud of humiliating her, but because it reminds people of something important. When someone abuses power, the most effective response isn't Radget's truth, timing, and the kind of patience that lets you watch them tie their own noose. So what do you think? Was I right to play it out the way I did? Or should I have shut her down the very first day?